I do also want to thank Sam and Kirsty. Sam's obviously up the back there, all just sitting third row backsliding. But you guys really do have amazing senior pastors. And the church that Sam and Kirsty are building here, especially if you haven't been around for a little while, it is a really amazing church, and it's dynamic. There's a lot in this that I believe is going to change our district, change our world. And it's not just the normal status quo. It's not just another church. This church no good, go to the church down the road. That one's no good, go to the church down the road. There's something different happening in here. And if you'll just have ears to hear what God is saying and what God is doing through this place, I'm sure that you will be blessed. Yeah. Amen? Yeah. Amen. Listen, hey, we've been doing a series over the last couple of months, and it's a series called Restore or Restoring. And we've talked about restoring your faith. We've talked about restoring love. I haven't talked about all these. This has happened from a bunch of different people. We've talked about restoring how to forgive people. We've talked about restoring how to get your passion back. And today I wanted to talk to you about how to restore your finances. And I know that I felt the deathly silence happen right there. I understand the word finance equals, it's like a swear word in church. I get that. If you say that, it's like I dropped the F-bomb and everyone goes, oh, did he really say that from up the front? Well, finance and the F-bomb start with the same letter, but that's pretty well about where they stop. And I'm not going to make this difficult or unlock anything here, because what I want us to do is I want us to understand what's actually happening. A lot of people say whenever you talk about finance or restoring finance, it's about restoring your finance, not to do with me, not to do with the church. It's to do with you going forward. A lot of people preach that scripture, and it talks about in Matthew 21, and it says, Jesus entered the temples and drove out all those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables and the money changers and turned over the benches of those selling doves. And they love that bit, and that's the bit why you shouldn't talk about money in church, because Jesus drove it out. Because what happened was, when they were coming up to the church, the temple back in the day, that they had made it like Paddy's markets. And there was just a bunch of stuff being sold there. And people knew that everyone was going to go to church. So what they did was they put Paddy's markets right up to the doors, and they'd even spilt sometimes into the doors, and they were doing a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I know it started out with they're selling doves to be sacrificed, and, there was a good Christian reason for it all, but the whole thing just got out of control, and Jesus saw it and just saw red. And then he said this in verse 13. It says, "It is written," he said to them, "my house will be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers and thieves." Now, that just gives you some indication about what these money people were doing. They were ripping people off. Their scales weren't balanced properly. They were buying doves for $1 and selling them for 10 instead of only 5, or whatever the markup should have been. And the whole thing went bad really, really quick. But that's not even the worst of it. The worst of it is not what they were doing with the money and the ripping the people off coming in and out of the temple. The worst of it was that they weren't using the temple. They weren't using the church for what it was supposed to be used for. This is what he said. "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer." This place needs to be a place of prayer. It needs to be a place of worship. It needs to be a place of preaching the gospel. It needs to be a place of love and acceptance and grace and mercy and fellowship. And more than what was going wrong with the money side of it, it wasn't being used for what it was supposed to be used for in the first place. And when those two worlds collide, that's when you'll find it right there in those scriptures. But I want to tell you something. You can't live without money in your own life. And something else about money, more than money, I'm into marriages. I'm into people staying married. I want people to find a partner, get married, and say, you know what, we've done longevity with this marriage, and we've stuck it together. And here's the thing, and this is really one of the big points of tonight. I want you to know that one out of, this is statistically off Google, so it's 100% correct, of every marriage breakup is because of financial pressure. So this is not about what you can do for the church. This is just a message about what the church can do for you. Because if 1 in every 3 marriages bust up because of financial pressure, don't you think it'd be something worth talking about? Don't you think it just at least once a year they drag the old guy out of the closet and say, can you just help us understand some of this stuff? Because we don't want young people getting married and then just blowing up. You know, financial pressure contributes significantly to marital breakdown, with some studies saying it's the major factor over one third of all divorces. Specific issues like arguing about finance weekly increases the likelihood of divorce by 30%. And feelings and spouses, harassing each other and accusing each other of foolishly spending their money increases the likelihood by 45% of getting divorced. What that means, guys, let me just break it down for you. When you say to your wife, why did you buy that? We didn't need it. You just went from 30% to 45% likely to get divorced. Yeah. Forget about the money side. Let's just stick with marriage for a moment. And girls, when your husband comes home on that brand new Harley Davidson, the fat boy, the one they're giving away on Triple M right now, except he didn't win it, he just went and bought it, you are over 45% chance of getting divorced. This stuff is just real stuff that happens in real life. Because finances are there. Now, for those that are saying, oh, well, what are the other 3? Well, lack of communication, and here's where it goes up even over the 45% mark, because a lot of people think that lack of communication, which is another third of why marriages break down, is because they didn't communicate correctly about finances. That's the bit is it more than 1/3 or less than 1/3? And the last one, what was that one? Oh, infidelity, adultery. Now, I'm sure if I got up and said to you guys, we're going to talk about marriage today. And I'm going to talk to you about how not to be sexually immoral, or I'm going to talk to you about how to stay away from adultery to keep your marriage together. Everyone would go, yeah, that's awesome, bring out the old guy. But when I say, I want to talk to you just a little bit about finance and how to get financial freedom or how to restore your finances to go forward, it's like, oh, did he just drop the F-bomb? I'm just trying to help you out here. You cannot do anything without money. You can't buy a house. This is why it's so entwined in what we do. And it shouldn't be as bigly frowned upon about teaching about it in church as what it is, because you can't buy a house without it. You can't rent a house without it. You can't buy food without it. You can't buy a car without it. You can't buy petrol without it. You can't go on holidays without it. You can't even take your wife for a meal out without it. And young people, I know you're sitting over there and you're going, oh, this doesn't really affect me. You can't buy McDonald's without money. And McDonald's is something they should pay you to eat it. So it does affect you. You can't buy a phone or go on TikTok without money. See, we just balanced it right out there, didn't we, old people? It's not just about living a married life. It's just like the moment you're born. And you can't do anything. You can't get the internet. I mean, the government's even taxing air now. So the moment you come out of the womb, whoever will be honoured over here, I didn't quite see. But the moment you come out of the womb, it's like, oh, that's taxed. That's taxed. It's such a into a thing that it's so entwined in what we do. Money is like air underwater. Without it, people kill to get that next breath when they're jammed underwater and stuck underwater. And when you look at the news, a lot of people are killing people and fighting people, and there's wars and rumors of wars and a whole bunch of stuff going on just to get some of this stuff. And we want to, the hope of the world, the light of the world, God that knows everything, we want to just avoid it, like as if like we should never speak about it because it sounds like the F-bomb because it starts with F. No. Let's just chat about it. Let's just throw it out there every now and then, because our finances needs to be restored back the way that God would want it to be in our life. See, the first thing you need to understand is this. Biblical, straight out of the Bible. Luke chapter 12, verse 24 says this. Consider the ravens. Consider the sparrow. Consider the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap. They do not have a storeroom or barns, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? That's about you. You are so precious to God. He makes a promise to you that when it comes to this stuff, He will take care of you. If He takes care of the birds, He'll take care of you. And whenever I get stuck and whenever I get a little bit, how's this all going to work through? I just remind myself, you look out the window, if God can take care of the birds, surely He's going to take care of me. And we've just got to realize that God has put that into us. And I'll tell you something else. The Old Testament, when it comes to money and the church, because I know you're all going to go, but does this really come back to the church? Listen, in the Old Testament and in giving money to the church, in the Old Testament, there's a lot going on about blessing and then cursing. But I want to tell you something. In the New Testament, there's just blessing or nothing. Now, you might say, well, hang on a minute. I'm sure my Bible talks about blessing and cursing. Yeah, in the Old Testament it does. But in the New Testament, it's just blessing or there's just nothing. You're on your own. Good luck with this area of finance. And it's a little bit the same thing like Sodom and Gomorrah got blown up by God in the Old Testament, but the girl that got caught in adultery, Jesus said, I don't condemn you either. Get up and go your way. If you keep going this way, it's probably not going to end up well for you. But you know what? There's no getting smacked or blown up from heaven now. Because Jesus died and gave grace to everybody for everything. And back in the Old Testament was an eye for an eye. And now Jesus said, now I'm telling you to turn the other cheek. See, something changed from the Old Testament when it came into the New Testament, where Jesus said, because of my grace, we're no longer blowing things up. There's no longer blessing and cursing. There's no longer going to be all these things. It's now turned to you can apply the principles and get the promise, or you just get nothing and you're on your own. My grace will cover you. The church shouldn't be harassing you to give or to make you give or guilting you into feeling you have to give or driving you and all this sort of stuff. Because if it does that, then it's just pulling stuff out of the Old Testament to try and drive you forward instead of just giving you the choice of, hey, listen, we're not going to condemn you for committing adultery. We're not going to condemn you for your sexual preference. We're not going to condemn you for this, that, or anything else. But just so you know, if you don't do it God's way, you are on your own. And that's why it's not blessing and cursing, it's just blessing and nothing. I hope you can understand where that comes from. You see, the Old Testament is still trying to drive people forward, but it's a little bit like how you drive cattle forward to how you would lead sheep forward. Now, when it comes to cattle, there's only one way to get them moving. And that's when you got to get out there, and if there's cattle down there, then you got to get up there and, yeah. Don't you love that? If I had one of these when I was the pastor, if I was in the olden days, oh yeah, boy, I could get those youth in a line back in the day, I'm telling you. But it's sort of fear-driven. And it's sort of like, come a little bit closer and let me tell you a little bit more about how it could work. Zeke's nose is going, I've seen that before and I've seen that taken right off. But you see, that's what they do. That's the only way to get the cows to go forward is they crack the whip behind them and all of a sudden they go forward. But Jesus said, I'm the good shepherd. Now, the good shepherd has a staff. Now, I don't even know where you buy a staff. So I got a picture of one for you and I'll put it on the screen. I'm just not that sort of guy that has a shepherd's staff in my office. Whips, multiple whips, no problem. Not for church, of course. It was since I've retired. But staffs, you know, they got left in the office. A shepherd's staff is a rod. You can have a look at it. It's a rod. It's a staff, and it's used to protect. It's used to bring guidance. It's used to bring some correction. The rod is a sturdy weapon to defend off predators from the flock. It's used to count the sheep as they start to come in and do what they need to do when they're putting them away at night. The staff is a long stick with a hook on the end of it. It's used to gently guide the flock, nudge the flock, and help the stray ones come back in. It's used to rescue sheep from difficult spots that they've fallen into. It's used to help lift them out of thorns and thistles and holes that they might fall in. It's used to help them survive and to be able to go forward. Now, I tell you, is our God, is Jesus the good shepherd, or is he the whipmaster? Because if you can't answer that, when the word finance comes up in church, you're going to think we're going to get whipped into giving some more, guilted into doing something extra, whacked if we don't do it this way, cursed if we don't do this, cursed if we don't do that. Our whole life is over, so we may as well give up and just leave the church, blah, blah. Or do we have a good shepherd that's here to guide us and just help us and everything else? And these are the things that I want to encourage you with tonight. We're serving the good shepherd. We're serving someone that just wants us to understand a few things about this topic and help it restore. Just restore that area of our life so it doesn't cause those issues that it does and the statistics that are so widely spread, and some of those things probably, to be honest, a little bit too close to home to even mention of how many times we and our spouses may fight about this particular topic. Today, there's no whip. There's just the staff. We apply the principles, we get the blessing. We don't apply the principles, we get nothing. And I pray that we understand that. I don't get paid by this church. I'm not sponsored by anything on my shirt or anything else. It's just information for you. And this is it. It's pretty quick. Because I'm just going to give you one thing to grab onto tonight, because it's not about a whole bunch of information, to be honest. It's more about understanding the concept of money and church and how they work together. It's not about the top 10 things that you need to do. It's just about understanding that God will take care of it when you do it his way, and that the church is not supposed to be using this and supposed to be using that. Just understanding that is going to help a whole district of Port Macquarie understand that this is not some sort of money grab when people come to church or put the QR screen on the code or talk to you about your personal finance. It's just something to help you go forward. Yeah. Here it is. Farmers sow seed. Farmers do not sow seed because they like driving the tractor. Although driving the tractor is fun. They do it, proper farmers, not hobby farmers, they do it because they need to get a return on the seed that is sown. When they get a return on that seed, then they buy bigger tractors to sow more seed, and then they buy more diesel to run their tractors, which then they get taxed on the diesel and taxed on all that they grow, but that's okay because even they get taxed when the cow farts now, so it's not a problem. The tax money is always going to go out, but it's a business. And that's what farmers are in the business of doing, sowing seed and getting it back. Jesus said to them in Matthew 4:1, he said this, "Again, Jesus began to teach by the lake. The crowd that gathered around him was so large that he got into a boat and went out and taught the people from the edge of the lake while still in the boat. As he taught them in parables, earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And he taught them about a farmer. In verse 3 it says this, listen, a farmer went out and sowed some seed. Now they all understood this, okay, because they were farmers or they were fishermen or they were around that sort of area, carpenters, that's what they did back in that days. A farmer went out to sow some seed. As he was scattering seed, he was sowing it. Didn't have a tractor back then, but you understand what I'm doing. He's throwing the seed out. Some fell along the path and the birds came and ate it up straight away. Some fell in rocky places where it didn't have much soil. It sprang to life quickly, but because the soil was shallow, when the sun came out, the plant was scorched and it withered because it had no root. Other seed fell amongst thorns, which grew up and choked the plant, so that it did not bear again. Still other seed fell on good soil. It came up and grew. It produced a crop, multiplying 30, 60, some even 100 times more than what was sowed. We go down to verse 13. Then Jesus said to the disciples on the side, he said, do you understand this parable? I feel like saying that to the church. Do you understand what's happening here? And then Jesus said to them, how then will you understand any parable if you can't even understand this one? In other words, he put a bit of an emphasis and said, this one is, out of all the parables that I tell, this one's pretty important. Like, if you can't get this one, you're probably not going to get some of the other ones. And you know what? When you look at the stats of what financial pressure causes, no wonder he wanted to take care of this one first. We understand he takes care of sexual immorality. We understand that. But we don't understand that there's just as big a on financial pressure and arguing and not understanding how money works in your hands. And then he said this. He said, some people are like seed along the path. When the word is sown, I'm sowing words to you today, some hear it and Satan comes and takes away that word as if it was never sown. You know what? There are a certain element of people in the Christian faith that go to church, whatever church, and the moment finance is spoken about, before they even get to a little bit into the message, before they even try to understand it, before they even open their ears like Laurie was talking about, it's not going to go to a church that talks about money, not going to go to a church that talks about, and this church doesn't talk about money hardly at all ever. And the reason why is because we value people over money. But the moment it is brought up, I'm going to another church. Let's go to another church. We can't stay in that church because they're talking about stuff that's going to save our marriage. We don't want to save our marriage. Oh no, hang on a minute, I said that wrong. Did I say that out loud? The moment something is said, the devil, it's stolen instantly. God could be saying, here's $1 million. And the $1 million is stolen before it even gets to your hands. There could be an idea to invent something or make something or do something or an idea of an inkling of what your career should be, but no, it's all out the window. It's stolen before you even get to take the first step towards what God may have for your life. Others, verse 16, are like the seed in rocky places. Hear the word and at once receive it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of that word, they quickly fall away. Here's another lot of people. They hear the message and go, I get that. That makes sense. I heard what Mark said. That makes sense. I can see how that would work. Let's do that. Hey, honey, you want to try that? Let's give it a go. Let's start to sow some seed into some good soil, and let's start to really, see the kingdom of God go forward, or do this. And this is going to help our marriage. It's going to help our lives, and we might even get a 30% return, maybe 60, maybe 100. And they hear it. But the moment people say, "You what? You give money to the church? Are you kidding?" It could be your dad or your mum. I told you not to get mixed up in that religious code. All they want is your money, Oh, Dad, but Mark said he just wanted me to help my marriage, give me a 33% better chance of staying. I fear, don't you worry about what he said. Just you're an idiot. You're nuts. You're crazy. Don't ever tell your accountant. Tried that. What are you doing that for? How are you going to afford the mortgage if you do that? And it doesn't matter. Professional advice, parental advice, friends at work, schoolmates. You what? You went to work all week and you did that? You're crazy. And the moment that some persecution comes or someone says you're doing the wrong thing, boom, it's all pulled back again. It's gone. At least you listened, but when persecution came and others didn't agree with you, it was taken off you. I mean, how many people can relate to know what I'm talking about with that? Still other seeds fell amongst the thorns. They heard the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things came and choked the word out, making it unfruitful, which means there was no return on it. See, you started a little bit like the second guy. But then you started to worry about, would there really be enough? If we keep this up, if we do keep giving some of our seed or sowing some of our seed to the church, will there be enough for the rent at the end of the month? Will we have enough to buy Christmas presents for all the grandkids or just our favourite ones? Don't you think we deserve a holiday as well? They're always on holiday. Shouldn't we be on holiday? I would like a shiny car. I'd like to wash my car and make it shinier. I could spend my Saturdays shining my car. And all of these things that are out there, we just start to gravitate towards them, and they're like a magnet. It's like, yeah, well, I deserve that, and he deserved that, and my kids deserve this, and they deserve that, and I'm worried about this, and I'm worried about that, and I'm worried about this, and all of a sudden, it's all going away. Whether it's new shoes, a new Xbox, it's all just hey, we see it, but unless they keep talking about it every week, it's just going to fall off the radar. There's just too many other things we're looking at. There's just too many other things that we could be spending the money on. There's just too many other... I know that they're promising 30, 60, 100-fold in seed, but I think I'll just take my chances with better the devil you know than the one that you don't, because it's pretty well what you got. And other seed fell in good soil. They heard the word, they accepted it, it produced a crop. A crop means money. Some 30, some 60, some 100 times what was sown. Whenever you sow or put God first, you're not giving everything you have away. I'm not into giving everything you have away. Just sowing something. Sowing a little bit and seeing the return come in. And then once you've got a 30, 60, 90, then sowing a little bit more and then maybe just take it slow and you'll see that it works. And the older you get and the more it works, the more you'll realize that you want to help the kingdom of God go forward and save your own marriage and a whole bunch of other stuff that is connected to these stories. See, you don't have to feel guilty if you don't give. You don't have to give. You're not going to get whipped if you don't give. But if you want the truth about how to restore your finances and how to make it something that's not a all-consuming burden on your life the whole time, put God first and do what he says. See, God has a plan for when you're born and when you die. He has a plan and a purpose for your life. He's got a plan for your salvation. He's got a plan for your marriage. He's got a plan for your career. He's got a plan for your health. He's got a plan for every aspect of your life. You hear about it every week in this place. What makes you think he wouldn't have a plan for your finances? When it's such a big area that it's all consuming to us. He's got a plan for everything else, but not that. So God's a 66% God. He can take care of 66, maybe 55% of your life, but the other 30%, 45% of your life, he's just forgotten about the plan. He said, you're on your own on this one. What makes you think that he would only be a half God? You know, as I close, I remember Sheree and I, when we first got married, actually before we were married, I decided that I was going to give out of my very first paycheck that I ever got. Ever got paid for the first week, I gave to God. And I just did it and did it and did it and did it and did it. And Sheree did the same. We owned a house before we were even married. We were at home, engaged, freeloading off our parents, like my kids do. No, I don't mean not all of them, of course not. Not Pastor Sam, just the others. And God blessed us. And I'm so convicted on this topic because I know that it works. You see, I've been able to travel the world. I live in a nice house. I have investment properties. I drive a nice car. And I also, probably more than any of those things, build God's kingdom. Because the more I know it works, the more I just grab hold on to seeing his kingdom go first and so. And it's twofold. I love the return. I got to be honest, I love the return. I love driving a Shelby. I love it. I got to be honest with you. I love it. But I love even a little bit more seeing God's kingdom go forward. I love just a little bit more seeing his church grow and thrive. Seeing young people come to church, seeing a whole generation live and serve and follow God. I love that a little bit more. So you can love them both. Because God says, I'll give you enough to do both. And he has, and he does, and he will. As the band comes, let me read this scripture to you, and then I'm done. Luke 12:22 says this. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore, this is a full passage about finance, and I'm just going to read it. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens, the birds. I've read this out to you already tonight. They do not sow or reap. They do not have storerooms or barns. Yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this little thing, why do you worry about the rest? I don't want to break that down, but you can't just give God a little bit. Why you worry about you can't even do the first thing. Why worry about the rest of it? If you can't even put God first in financial area, are you really putting God first in every other area? Consider how the flowers grow. They do not labor or spin, yet not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. That's how I know that God's into abundance. Like he just does it for flowers. Looks after birds. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is beautiful, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you of little faith? That's how I know God's into designer jeans and better clothes and cool shoes and fast cars. Because it's not just status quo. It's you're the one that holds the limit above your head about how you live. This is how God classes it. And do not set your hearts on what you will eat or drink. And don't worry about that. For the pagans, the non-Christians, the people that aren't following God, the world runs after such things, and your Father knows you need them all. But here's the kicker, verse 31. But seek first his kingdom, and everything else will be given to you. If you put God first in every area, everything else will just chase you down. I'm telling you, according to Laurie, I'm old enough to know. Thanks, guys.